Today's episode is brought to you by Telecom Careers, the #1 global telecom and wireless job board. telecomcareers.net.
Thanks for joining us on this week's Carrier Wrap. I'm your host, Dan Meyer, Editor-in-Chief at RCR Wireless News, and I'm at the RCR studios here in Austin. Joining me, as always, is Sean Kinney, the Managing Editor here at RCR. Hey, Sean.
Well, it's nice to be in the same room with you. We usually are only ever together in Las Vegas.
Awkward
right?
situations, yes,
yeah,
in Vegas.
It's like a president-vice president.
Yes,
type thing,
exactly. We can't travel
so,
together. It's pretty rare.
And just, let's keep it that way.
That's why
if
that's
you
why
don't mind,
yeah.
I'm much more comfortable
It's
talking
awkward,
to
yeah.
you through a webcam. So.
I agree. I was going to say thanks for joining us, but obviously I'm joining you now because actually
Yeah.
I'm in your home territory now. So
Welcome to Carrier Wrap. For RCR TV, I'm Sean Kinney, and today we're going to be talking about the latest and greatest of the holiday promotions coming out of the carriers. It's been a busy few weeks, Dan.
it has been a very busy few weeks. And yeah, we're going to, I guess, touch on wrapping up some of the last ones here. Obviously, we're, a week or so, 2 weeks ahead of the holidays here, the last of the holidays. So I think we're going to touch on a bit. I know today or this week, whatever day it is right now, AT&T came out with a new promotion, I think, over the weekend about a 2-for-1 deal for some phones now. It's like kind of a last-minute thing. I think
BOGO.
BOGO. Everybody loves the BOGOs for all of their smartphone devices. So, and I guess the biggest offer there would be for the iPhone because obviously that's the more expensive device. But so they're offering for consumers buy one get one free. I think one of them has to be a new line of service though. So again, kind of a way to bring some new customers in, perhaps attract some customers from some rivals. But that's kind of a nice offer. Again, we're still a couple weeks out, so kind of everybody's kind of throwing on some last-minute things here. But we'll see how it sticks. I don't know your thoughts on kind of those BOGOs as a consumer, from a consumer point of view. What's your view on the BOGOs?
It's a great deal if you were on the market anyway.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. I mean, we've discussed this in the past on this show, like the whole like holiday promotion thing where people like, I guess, don't have cell phones, but then, hey, Christmas is coming. Maybe I'll join the 21st century here. At the holiday season. So for that person, this is a fantastic deal. For me, less than useless. But still, I appreciate a bargain when I see one nonetheless. But I love T-Mobile. Like, as with all things marketing right now in the carrier space, they're dominating the holiday promos.
Yes,
too.
they've done a very good job with that. I know that the last one last week from Verizon, they came out with targeting them and another one.
Yeah, and I know they targeted Sprint before that and what was the AT&T promotion?
It was basically $200 they were giving for customers who came in. They would give you an iPhone 128 gig model for the price of a 16 gig model.
That's right.
So it's basically $200 off, which is very similar to the Sprint one, which they gave $200 cash for that. So.
And speaking of T-Mobile promotions, this video, y'all on the internet, you've got to check it out. You can see it on the RCR Wireless. There's a story that goes with it, but it's basically 3 minutes of John Legere, who we all love.
Yes.
He's conducting a choir.
Yes. And
to the tune of Jingle Bells, they are taking on Sprint, taking on Verizon, taking on, I guess, the FCC almost in some regard.
Yes, it's a very interesting one.
The concept of overages, data caps, it's all in there. It's all to the tune of Jingle Bells. It's hilarious and very festive.
And in 3 minutes, too. They seem to do it all in 3 minutes.
Oh, the production value on this thing, though. Like, I mean, a team of people worked for months to get this together. And it shows because it's fantastic. You
got to give them credit. They definitely are putting in the production value, like you said, for all the. I mean, Legere's done a lot of videos, and but they all seem like they have actually put some effort into them. They're not just him on his webcam like what we do.
Yeah,
he doesn't. I mean, occasionally he'll do like his Periscope stuff, and which are a little more off the cuff. But they've put some effort into it, which I appreciate.
Let me ask you this too. He specifically, not he, the choir under his direction specifically calls out Sprint and Verizon. So, to me, conspicuous in its absence is a call out of AT&T. Speculate.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, it is interesting because they have in the past always been most aggressive towards AT&T. It was like their first main target. But you're right, not doing it now is a strange thing. I'm not sure if that's, Now
Sprint. I mean, Sprint's in the
now there's AT&T's almost been pushed down to the side. It's interesting. I'm not sure what that was about. They couldn't get anything to rhyme with AT&T. It's not the easiest named. Yeah, it's kind of, letters are difficult to rhyme to at times. As far as I know.
A practical reason.
Yes.
That never actually came on my radar.
That was my
I was
thought.
sitting here thinking about business analysis. I thought maybe, I like that.
I made it
better.
simple.
Yeah.
They couldn't find anything wrong with it. So that was my I mean, again, I'm not sure who knows with those guys. I mean, he might have maybe a special thing coming out maybe this week for targeting AT&T. Who knows what he'll do.
And, and we've also been talking a lot about, we mentioned Sprint, all of their corporate restructuring and otherwise their cost-cutting plans, and might be more on that later.
Who knows? Yeah,
We'll
I think it's some word we've gotten recently that they're making maybe some cuts this week on some internal staffing issues there. So we're trying to nail down some sources there to see what's happening. But again, we're coming to the end of the year. They're on a different fiscal quarter, so I'm not sure what the impact might be for that. But at least for this calendar year, again, we're coming to the end of that. So perhaps there are rumors of making all these cuts. They've been looking to cut $2 billion, $2.5 billion, a lot of job cuts. Perhaps we might hear something here in the next week or so about some actual numbers or some actual movement there. So we'll see. We're trying to nail that down at this point. So.
They're not the only big player in the telecom space going through these sort of management restructurings.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I know. Yeah,
Dish,
I know.
Right?
Yeah, Dish. I think late last week came out. Their CEO, chairman, and president, Charlie Ergen, who's kind of the founder of the company there, apparently he's giving up now his president role, which he took earlier this year when somebody else retired. So he took that on. He's now giving that up to another person to come on. And basically what they were trying to explain is this kind of is the next move for their kind of reorg, basically. And one of the interesting things in their statement is that it was kind of a focus for their future wireless plans, which tends to hint that they perhaps might be making some moves there. I mean, they've got a lot of spectrum. There's always been rumors and about what they might do with that spectrum.
Yeah,
they haven't done anything yet. But they keep hinting, hey, we might do something. And again, it could just be them just trying to make it sound like they might do something to get more money for their spectrum. Who knows what their plans are? But yeah, so they made some management changes there.
That's what I was trying to kind of interpret it too. And I mean, it could be almost anything. I mean, they could be going for some sort of MVNO play using all that spectrum. They could be trying to just offload the spectrum and create sort of a more receptive business climate for it, or they might have a huge announcement around the corner, sort of like AT&T DirecTV. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot going on there. I mean, again, they've got a lot of options. To me, it seems like the least likely is them actually launching service, only because there's so much cost involved with launching.
It's such a high barrier to entry.
So,
even for an MVNO, it's still. I mean, that's why there's not a lot of telecom companies, because building a network is
it's a pain
expensive.
in the butt. No one wants to do it. It's too much of an MVNO would make a little more sense, only because at least they would not have to worry about the cost of actually deploying a network, which is prohibitive. But yeah, who knows? Again, they could just be, again, one of those things where they're just going to start selling off some spectrum at some point and making some money.
And they're not the only one either. We've been watching Comcast, too, for whatever it is that they're going to do, where they exercise that option to tap into Verizon spectrum for ?
Yeah.
We'll see what it is. But point being, network convergence. Telecoms looking more like cable companies. Cable companies looking more like telecoms.
Yeah, and that's been like, a lot of the cable guys have been looking at wireless for years and years and years and kind of coming in, coming out. And but yeah, it looks like, again, we're kind of in that mode where they're looking to get back into it and perhaps, tap into what's happening out there.
Well, they need to. I mean, like Time Warner Cable, that's my cable provider. They ain't making any money off of me. Like, I can guarantee you that. I think I'm paying them $65 for like 300 down, and I haven't had cable in years.
Yeah.
And I mean, I leave that Netflix on like it's nothing, just burning that data.
Well, that's youth today. They do a lot of that kind of stuff. And some of those older people still have wired phones and things like that too. But you're right, it's changing. And that's kind of what's happening. So they have to, they have to adjust, because those. I mean, even Dish has said that they're losing customers too. They're losing traditional pay TV customers. So yeah, they've got to adjust somehow. So we're going to see what they'll. And maybe they'll divert money from pay TV to wireless. Maybe they will get it. I mean, who knows what their plans are? But they've at least got the spectrum there. Plenty of potential partnership opportunities. Sprint's been out there forever as a potential partner, T-Mobile even. So who knows? We'll see what happens in that there. But yeah, again, as we're wrapping up kind of the holiday season here, this I think will be our last show here of the year as well. I believe, right? We're not doing a show next week.
We're giving you Christmas off?
I'm taking it off. I'm just leaving.
That's got to be a mistake.
Yeah, I'm leaving.
I'll get Kyle on that. All right.
We'll take care of that. But this will be the last show of the year for us. And so maybe a last little quick topic is, what do you expect for the new year there, Sean, when it comes to what are you expecting to see in terms of wireless stuff? This is kind of I'm throwing this at you last second here, but top of your head.
What I foresee in 2016 is we're going to start to see the beginnings of the restructuring of data pricing for carriers for a lot of reasons. We see so much competition around unlimited data, which ostensibly right now is for video streaming. So, okay, fantastic. I think that's going to be sort of the thing that starts the conversation. But we talk so much about the Internet of Things, as do all of these major carriers. So we're eventually going to have to arrive at a business model that's A, profitable for the service providers, but B, approachable for a consumer. If you're talking about everything in my house is going to have a cellular connection, the current price model does not work. I will not buy these products. I will not connect them to the internet because I do not want to buy my sneakers a cellular subscription.
Yes.
So something's got to change.
And if you're not going to do it, and you're leading edge. So
Yes.
if you're not going to do it, they've got to
do it.
Exactly.
I want to do it,
Yes.
but not at current data pricing.
Now, that's a good point. That's going to be interesting to see. You know, I think that needs. I agree with you. That needs to change. It might take a very aggressive and adventurous carrier to do that. You know, perhaps AT&T and Verizon, this could be their play there because they have a pretty well-established infrastructure in terms of support for IoT and things like that. So they could be the ones who, in the past year, have not really been very aggressive on pricing, but this could be a market where they could be a leader because they at least have the stuff in place to do it, I think, and at least a footprint there.
I guess I envision it as, and you know, this is just off the cuff, but like a true unlimited data bucket that I pay a premium for, but there's no throttling and it will support anything that I would care to connect to it that's compatible. Or maybe even you'll see that model with the actual unlimited bucket and then like a somewhat marginal connection fee for each new device you bring into your life. Like, oh, for things that need this throughput threshold, $5.
That's good because right now the data buckets, they do have this fee where you can attach a device, but I think it is a bit prohibitive because again, that's $5 or $10 a month to attach a device to something, which doesn't make any sense if it's something that doesn't really need a lot of data, and why keep adding on big costs?
Yeah,
like
well,
that?
I mean, and this is a poor example because they obviously bundle it because AT&T is the service provider and they sell the product line, but just strip away the AT&T digital life sort of branding, and so now assume, okay, I want to have a smart home, so you need a thermostat. Need door locks, need security camera. They even have the water monitoring thing. So, I mean, that's like at least 4 new things, assuming you only have one door to your home that need to be connected. So that's costly, and that's like very basic. Yeah. That's what consumer adoption right now will support. But again, got to bring that cost more in line.
Yeah, and that'd be a great move. They can kind of start moving that direction there. So we'll see what happens there. But well, great insight there. Well, again, Sean, thanks for joining me so far this year on the shows here. I want to introduce now. I know we had a conversation here with Bill Ho from 556 Ventures, and we talked a bit about some of the promotions that recently came out, as well as got Bill's forecasts and predictions of what he expects moving forward. And while our input and opinions are obviously very valid and you can take them to the bank, Bill's might be a little bit even more better than ours. So, but we'll see. Again, check out the interview here, and again, thanks for watching our shows this year. We appreciate it.
All right, well, thanks for joining us. My name is Dan Meyer, I'm editor-in-chief at RCR Wireless News. And for this segment, we are joined by Bill Ho, who's the principal analyst at 556 Ventures. Hey, Bill, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
You bet.
Great. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about I know we've talked about the past couple of weeks on the Carrier Wrap Show, kind of looking at leading up to the holidays here, kind of some of the promotions coming up to carriers. So maybe we'll do a quick little conversation on where we are leading up to the final days here of the holiday. And then talk a little bit about looking into 2016. So I guess, looking at kind of where we are the past couple of weeks, we've seen a couple more promotions come out from carriers. I think this week we saw AT&T come out with their buy one, get one device promotion, which seemed like the best part of that might be for iPhone customers. You can buy one iPhone and get one for free, which is a nice little bonus for customers. I think for that one, though, you do have to bring a new line of service. And then I think, there's T-Mobile, Verizon, made some announcements as well. So I guess from your point of view, Bill, I guess kind of this last little rush of promotions coming out, anything surprise you? Anything kind of stick out in your mind as being compelling that might maybe move the needle one way or another?
Yeah, I think I think most impactful is probably the timing. So T-Mobile said we're going to get all these customers and we're going to give these X days of Christmas, right? So Sprint was first. Number 2 was AT&T, and now Verizon. So their promotions were stepped up in specific. From Verizon's standpoint, it's just we'll give you more gigabytes and more retention as opposed to switching. What's interesting in timing for AT&T in this buy one get one is that there are two devices here, right? It's the Halo devices. It's Samsung S6 and the iPhone 6S and maybe 6S Plus, but the timing is such that this is kind of the crunch of the right? So I think that's a good move on their part on timing this promotion. Additionally, you have to think about kind of the if it's switching or is it retention, because it's both. Right. So it's adding a new line, so it's a net add right there, right? So whether it's a net add from a existing sub subscriber or a new sub. And it's compelling from a switching standpoint because I want to get one free. So you're getting an iPhone for half off. And one of the fine prints, which is really good for churn reduction, is that one of the lines, the extra lines, got to be next 24, which really means it's 30 months.
Yep.
So there's a lot of things going on in this BOGO beyond the surface of buy one get one free.
Yeah, I have to say too, with the AT&T thing, that their next 24 being a 30-month program is the numbering on that. Just I'm not a big fan of that, but whatever, we'll leave that alone. I wish it would line up the number, but anyway, that's a different story. So
there's a confusion, obviously, but that's. But I think if you were a consumer, who cares? I'm getting something for half off. They know that you can kind of prepay in advance. So those people who are really, want to get debt off, then they'll do that. And then finally, I think we talked about Sprint. Sprint is went way ahead. Will cut off half the price for existing all the competitors. So it remains to be seen what will win. And I think the difference between last year and this year is that T-Mobile is included in the mix.
Yeah.
So T-Mobile may not get as many users as they would in the past. Yeah,
because they had a great. I think looking back to Q1 last year, I'm pretty sure T-Mobile had a pretty big Q1 last year.
Right.
Promotion and stuff. So yeah, you're right. But we'll see what Sprint does. I mean, if Sprint can gain some traction, their promotion was pretty big. I mean, get 50% off, at least from a commercial point of view. Seeing that's got to draw some customers. I mean, obviously, they're still working through their network issues and stuff. But if they can get some people on board on a 2-year kind of deal like that, that's gonna be big for Sprint.
Yeah, from Sprint standpoint, it is getting rid of their reputation. So they've been doing a lot of PR on the network recently. With help of root metrics, just pointing that they're getting faster and better. And certainly their promotion will get the price sensitive customers because those are the people who are probably going for those deals. And it's just getting more will be proving that their network is as good and is value packed and get an equal experience specifically in those markets to draw switchers.
I guess looking towards next year for Sprint, because obviously they have put a lot of emphasis on their improving network. I know the Chicago market has been a big focus for them, kind of showing people, hey, this is what we can do. They've invested a lot of money directly into Chicago. It's been a big market for them to really show what they can do. I know Denver's been a market as well that they've been looking at to do. I guess how important is it going to be for them to really kind of keep that momentum going into next year? Because it does seem like, I think we've talked about this before, those are some big markets, but there's so many other larger markets out there they need to really focus on. Will there be much of a rub off from, if a customer in New York sees that, Sprint's doing well in Chicago, are they going to say, hey, maybe they're going to do well in my neck of the woods? Do you think there's much of a spreading of I guess, word of mouth there, or is that going to be more local specific for them?
Yeah, I think it's local, and that's why they went for decentralization.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think a New York user who doesn't really travel to Chicago would really care. It's just whether it's in my home market, am I getting satisfaction from it? I think the people who really care, and maybe it's as cost up, is the enterprise user who does possibly travel a lot, and to woo them away from the user, where they are, which is Verizon, AT&T, is a consideration. But I think looking forward to Sprint, it's, as we talked in the past, about implementing that Chicago template, modifying it, refining it to the region, and then showing success. And I think on the backs of it is really the network build-out story. So we saw that there were comments from Sprint about asking the FCC to facilitate siting. And such to accelerate densification. So 16 will be a build-out year for some markets, important markets, but as they said before, they're going to concentrate where their users are, where they're going to be winning the most, and those areas where they see the most wins should be where they're concentrating their network build-out and hand in hand with local marketing.
Yeah, you're right. That's the whole densification, using small cells. There's been talk of them using up to 70,000 small cell deployments. But you're right, that's going to be a big part of their densification, making sure they have these strong networks in those markets. So, 2016 is going to be interesting for Sprint to see if they kind of keep that momentum going, while at the same time under this umbrella of cutting, as we talked before, a couple $2 billion in costs.
Well, what I expect from Sprint is that they will get that. They'll play up 2-carrier, but really when 3-carrier aggregation comes, their speed's going to be much better than the other carriers. And then when that comes, and when I guess Root Metrics comes in and says Sprint's blowing everybody out the water, they're going to just take that and just go to town with it.
Yeah, that'll be big. Yeah, but also, I mean, they're going to have to make sure they get good coverage too, because I mean, I was a former, I used Sprint's WiMAX network back in the day, and you know, when you got a connection, it was fast. It was faster than anything else that was out there. But getting a connection was always tricky with that. So they have to make sure they get some good notification and make sure that customers can actually not just see the speeds, but actually, you know, be in an area where they can actually access those speeds. So.
Yeah, well, you know, if you think about it, that's what supposedly Network Vision is all about, because they have the 800 from the Nextel days, so that can give you all the way out to rural and exurbs and suburbs and things like that, and penetration to, and they have an international footprint.
Yeah.
So they can in theory use that to penetrate buildings and have that story. They've got the PCS, which is their bread and butter, and then with the speed and densification and capacity should be that 2.5.
Yeah. So we'll see how that plays out. But another topic, I think, going into 2016, we kind of saw some of the fruits of this starting to happen, or this year, was kind of the focus on video now. And obviously, with T-Mobile doing their binge on thing, they really jumped, you know, really headfirst in the fact that, hey, they're going to support video on their network. They got some sort of magic technology out there that's allowing them to compress the service. I mean, I'm sure it's pretty basic, but they're doing that with binge on. I know AT&T's got the DirecTV partnership, so they have some very good potential there for video. Verizon with their Go 90, which is off to a little slow start perhaps, but it seems like video is going to be a big part of maybe 2016. You know, as you look at kind of what carriers have done so far, positioning-wise and technology-wise, and how they set up, you think, to support that next move towards, you know, supporting video on a cellular level, not just on a Wi-Fi or an offload type level.
Yeah, sure. So with let's start with T-Mobile, because binge on is really a network offload story, right? It's a customer feature story, but most of it is a network savings. Yeah. Knowing that, and they admit that maybe, I don't know, it was, did they say it was like 7% of their traffic was video? Yeah. It's probably similar in a lot of other carriers, but given that, that's why binge on exists, right? And I think in the investor conference, Neville Ray said that once they flipped the switch on binge on, they saw a 10% savings and a reduction in network traffic. So I think going into 16, as people use more video and as they try to sign up more video content people, maybe YouTube, if they ever land that deal. Yeah. That story, if I were an investor as an industry watcher, I would want to see that percentage go up in terms of savings. And they're also mitigating it. So they're kind of transitioning from a customer acquisition where they're throwing money and throwing data at it. So one of the things that the promotions that had been a huge driver for them in the past was 4 lines, 10 gig, right? For a certain dollar, I think it was 120. Yeah. Now that 10 gig is gone. Now it's 6. So they're mitigating their network risk by decreasing that. They're increasing their profitability, because the more gig you give away, the lower profit you get. So you're seeing a transition to T-Mobile, and they're still acquiring customers very well. They're increasing their momentum, but they're minimizing their risk from a network and margin side. Yeah, that's pretty important for them right now, because I've been reading in a few spots where it does seem like that they are perhaps having some network capacity issues in some markets now, because again, they've been adding so many customers. I know they're refarming as fast as they can, the 1.9 to 1.7, but it does seem like that perhaps they are starting to hit a saturation point in some areas. But again, they have smart technology guys. You know, Neville Ray's been doing great there. But yeah, it does seem like they're trying to get out ahead of that issue. And obviously, video is going to be a huge impact on everybody's network. And so yeah, if they can somehow get something in place early enough to get that stuff moved over and get consumers used to perhaps a slightly degraded video experience, right? Do it early enough, then they won't lose customers in the longer term for that too. So that's they're getting ahead of themselves a bit to make sure that they keep that network quality up for them. So let me go off on a slight tangent in that. Please do. It has to do with getting enough spectrum and capacity. So you know that even though they're all competitors, they're nice and friendly if they cut the right deal for spectrum. And Verizon and T-Mobile have, I think in the last one where it hit the FCC, there were discussions from an external source that said they shouldn't go ahead with it. But the heart of it is getting contiguous spectrum, right? It's more efficient if it's contiguous and you have it all all in one pipe as opposed to multiple pipes, and you have to do carrier aggregation. Yeah. So I think that will continue to happen. That T-Mobile is looking for continuous as well as everybody else. So they're friends in that realm, so that everybody knows that you got to do it.
Yeah.
If the deal is right, then you got to do it so that you can maintain that capacity.
Yeah, you're right. I think those deals were pretty much just aligning their spectrum. So like they had, whatever bands they had, they were contiguous with each other's, with their legacy holdings as well. So basically, they could, use less of a guard band, basically, right. Not have to worry about interference issues and things like that. So they can actually be a little more efficient in their spectrum use. But yeah, you're right. It's good to see the carriers work together because again, the technology guys, they're competitive, but they know end of the day they have to. All kind of help each other out a bit to make sure they have the best data.
And one last thing I think about T-Mobile is that they'll always be on hunt for additional 700. So the 700, they already mentioned, I think in their last
a couple more deals
or something like that. They picked up more. They've implemented of the original 130 or 160 out of 190 or something like that.
Yep.
Everybody they'll be in hunt for existing spectrum that can help them in the short term, but 600's kind of in the future. So I think from the alignment of content, LTE broadcast is probably coming in. I think from the industry watcher standpoint, everybody's waiting for that to come. In theory, it should have come in terms of demos and trials and things like that. 15, but it didn't. But I think it with the mentions about it by Randall Stevenson, their chairman, then it should be coming in 16. So I think it really is about the content. So DirecTV, and he talked about all the other content deals, more the mainstream stuff, which is from AT&T, more the OTT stuff hitting a specific audience from Verizon. But in both cases, LTE broadcast has the capability to put linear content. So I think both carriers talked about content such as sports. So Super Bowl, some event that can kind of spur on that, and then kind of with that there'll be monetization of the advertising.
Yeah, exactly. And for those that don't know, LTE broadcast is basically a one-to-many streaming type of service. Basically, for technology, instead of a typical LTE connection, it's kind of a back and forth. This is basically a one from one spot streaming it out to devices that are capable with the LTE broadcast signal. Basically, it's kind of like the old media flow service, really, that Qualcomm did. I mean, years ago, when I bring up an old technology there, but it's kind of like that, basically. It's just using LTE instead of using proprietary technology to kind of stream.
It's just like watching live TV, basically.
I guess we go to there too, sure. It's just like live TV, but yes, that's true. But right, and then it's curious how they've been trialing these in the past at some big sporting events. But right, it does seem like it's taken a while for it to really kind of get out because they've been talking about it and trialing it for such a long time. And
that's why I go back to content, because as you a media flow user in the past, I know for a fact, we always talk about the content, and the content was less than stellar.
Yes.
And so I think with the DirecTV purchase and the access to content, the lower cost of the content can facilitate probably good margins on LTE broadcasts or wherever the video service is. It enables sponsor data. So sponsor data has been talked about by both AT&T and Verizon. AT&T, I think 2 years ago at CES talked about sponsor data. They've had other variants, but from a video standpoint, sponsor data does make sense. And I think both carriers have talked about it. So we'll probably see that go on and some service around that.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense from a consumer point of view. Obviously, there's the regulatory issues that might come up when it comes to sponsor data, but that's for the FCC to wiggle their way through. So we'll see what happens on that. And then I guess maybe one final topic before we let you go here. Going into 2016, obviously the prepaid market is still a very competitive market. I know, again, with T-Mobile buying Metro and with AT&T buying Cricket, they've really boosted those offerings, and Sprint obviously with its various prepaid bands and all the MVNOs and TracFone out there. It seems like the prepaid market, perhaps while not as sexy as it never really is compared to the postpaid side, it's a pretty aggressive market at this point. And a lot of new offerings have come out around streaming music and things. Well, I guess what do you see kind of happening in the prepaid space leading into next year?
So in the prepaid space, I think a lot of the carriers have been focusing on high value users for a lot. And I think the most success has come from Cricket. where they report ARPU's over $42, which is in some cases better than postpaid ARPU. Yeah. So if you think about it, it's kind of replicating on the postpaid side, where premium users will be coveted, and the pay-as-you-go guys aren't so, because they're way too price sensitive and their ARPUs are really, really low. So the biggest thing that has come up in the last quarter or so has been moving that free streaming music to Metro, and then Sprint following suit. So the question is, will Cricket follow suit, or will they just ignore it, or will they have bring on a version of Move Music, which the previous Cricket have done, and will that be a kind of a hallmark and a feature, a required feature in the prepaid high value space? Yes,
great reference there to Move Music. You're right. I forgot all about. I mean, you're right. Cricket had their Move Music service out there for a long time. You're right. I know they kind of branched that off as a separate entity and sold it off at some point. But you're right. The Move Music could be an interesting way for them to get back in that space, and they've got maybe some brand recognition there still that they can use. But that's a good point. They can maybe tap into that.
And you have to, I think, from that standpoint, you have to wonder if they will continue to say, we like a high prepaid base, we won't go chase low value customers, similar in the postpaid side, the Crickets that I'm thinking. And on the prepaid, Verizon has been hit hugely, even though it's maybe 6 to 7% of their base. Yeah, they haven't been doing well. So it remains to be seen if they do anything. And then from I guess all the track phone entities, they'll have their base, but it's just a matter if they lose or if they acquire more, and if all the other ones are impinging upon that base, and if they are going to fight back.
Yeah, because I mean, does Verizon need to be more aggressive in that space? Because again, like you said, I mean, we've covered this a long time, and they definitely kind of just push it to the side and just kind of throwing little promotions here and there out there, but really not aggressively gone after it. But they've always been able to just talk off and say, that's not a big focus for us. We don't have to worry about that. But it seems like at some point they have to at least put some sort of effort into it. I mean,
I think that they've been doing token efforts in terms of promotions for that. But unless they do something drastic, I think they'll continue to lose subscribers, because Cricket's is touting the AT&T. I don't know, they're really not touting, but it's got the AT&T network, which is from all intents and purposes similar to Verizon. So from the value prop, all they have to say that our network is better is as equal as Verizon, and that premium for the premium prepaid user goes away from Verizon.
Yeah, and I definitely would say AT&T's done a really good job getting that Cricket migration done. I mean, I think there were some issues initially with losing some customers there, but they seem to have really turned it around and really done a pretty good job positioning Cricket. They even kind of reference it as a premium brand in the prepaid. Right. So yeah, they've done a pretty good job of really getting that turned around. And it's great to see that Cricket name. I mean, we covered this long enough. We remember the Cricket from the old Leap days, and for a while there they were growing pretty well. But it's good to see them kind of still out there and making.
So with Cricket, it'll be interesting because they got a new honcho there. Yep. So John Dwyer took over for Jennifer Van Buskert.
Yep.
And so it'll be interesting because he's all about the AT&T postpaid experience. It'll be interesting to see if he kind of injects kind of the same flavor within the Cricket stores.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. But well, hey, great, Bill. Again, we definitely appreciate the great insight. Always good to get your insight on what's happening with the holidays here, and also looking at next year. But we definitely appreciate the time today. Thanks so much for the time.
Okay.
All right. We'll talk to you again soon.
Bye.